What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, talking today about the Outer Worlds, because this is an RPG that I just spent the entire weekend playing, and honestly, I'm so conflicted about it. Now let me just say right up front, it is incredible. It is a game that manages to be almost random in how good it manages to be, from the quests that seem to be practically built to your own particular interests, the really sporadic humor, and even the graphics are pretty decent for the fact that this was made on a much smaller budget. But I'm also very much kind of considering the fact that while this game is so big and fantastic, it's kind of ruined Fallout. I don't think I can ever go back to the game because this is just such a massive and perfect improvement upon it. Now, a lot of us, when we think about Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, and unfortunately the dumpster fire that is Fallout 76, we think immediately of Bethesda, the developer of those games, when in fact, they're not the original creators. The franchise itself was created by a very different studio called Obsidian. Well, what's funny is that Obsidian didn't exactly vanish, they just sort of went dormant for a bit, but now they're back. This is their first major project in many years, and what's kind of impressive is that, in a way, this seems like it's actually the true next step of Fallout. It takes the idea, the art style, and even things like the little touches of the universe, but takes them into the literal universe. We're going out into space and exploring the stars. The story in this game is based around a custom character that we get to create, but it's more than just a matter of making your facial features look a particular way. You can actually choose your backstory, saying whether you're like an out-of-work musician, or in my case, I actually made it where I am a cashier who decided to take this space travel to find a better job. And boy did that not turn out great. Basically, after the opening cutscene, we discovered that this is a world that's kind of completely screwed. In fact, what they decided to do is they brought in all these colonists to try and help them, well, kind of innovate and expand, and then they decided to just leave them in cryosleep. So here you are, many, many years later, waking up in a universe that you don't understand, in a solar system you've never seen before, and also basically completely alone. You don't know anybody, you don't know anything, except for apparently how to shoot a gun. This is, in a way, still a first-person shooter, which might kind of offend some people because this has such deep RPG mechanics, but I do think that the combat is something in this that really kind of caught me the most off guard. Now personally, I really do enjoy the way that the aiming worked when it came to things like the Fallout games, but this, it manages to be very, very refined. I mean, I'm just gonna say it, I feel like a lot of times these first-person RPGs, they're so centered on things like stats and trying to make sure that the writing is good, that they sort of forget the fact that you need some exceptionally good controls for a game that you might be playing for hundreds of hours. I love the combat in the Outer Worlds. It is super good. In fact, something I really kind of liked about it is that there is a heavy depth of how you tinker with it. Like, I decided to upgrade and use my stat points to make it where I could be really good with different weapons. My pistols, my sniper rifles, and even a little bit of sneaking, just to try and make it where my character was a bit more well-rounded. But what's kind of interesting is that I like that there's this nice sense of scavenging to every single dungeon. The game sort of seems almost like Dungeons and Dragons, which I don't have a huge amount of experience with, but because there is something about this that seems so customized, it's very hard for me to even believe that any two playthroughs would be even remotely similar. The biggest thing about this game, and I'll be honest, the main reason I'm not doing a full-blown review of this game is because I think that it would be incredibly difficult to put a number on a project like this, because every time you're playing it, there are all these things that are being randomized. Like, as an example, there's all these different spec trees where you can actually alter your specialization to make it where you run faster, or you can actually carry more weight. Or something like I personally really loved, where I could actually be alone, and if I didn't have a companion with me, I would deal additional damage. And each of these things sort of sounds fun on their own, but the interesting aspect is that there's also random chances to get additional talent points. Like, at one point, I accidentally fell off a very tall cliff and barely survived, and I attributed a flaw, where basically the game determined you have now unlocked a special randomized perk, but I can choose to decline or accept it. Now for the rest of the game, I had less stats, but I had an additional chance to customize the speciality of my character. Now that may sound like just a one-off event, but in actuality this is extremely common. There's so many times during this game where there are multiple paths in front of you, and each one seems like it could fundamentally alter the rest of your experience. Your entire playtime could, at a moment's notice, completely shift. Now something else about this is that I love the universe they've built because it is hilarious. This is hyper-capitalism. People not only work for their companies, they're obsessed with it. So as you go from planet to planet, there's all these different jurisdictions and rival groups and stuff, and you get a chance, of course, because this is a giant RPG, to try and help or screw over these different teams. And what really kind of cracked me up is that since these people exist in this ultra freaking serious world where your job is your life, they do these things that are very natural to them and creates a very natural sense to the jokes. Like, something that just really cracked me up again and again is that a lot of times these characters don't say goodbye, but instead will actually quote commercials. Like, one of the things they do is, these dudes here are called the Spacer's Choice, and they're like a big group that you encounter pretty early on, and whenever you say goodbye, they'll actually say the catchphrase, which is, "You've had the best, now try the rest, Spacer's Choice," which is hilarious. The fact that these people would be so brainwashed and so plugged into this corporate structure that's fundamentally dismantling their world is hysterical, and it's a big part of the game. There are some giant fundamental choices in this game that are kind of crazy, of destroying a city or saving a city. Like here's the thing where basically these people decided to leave society and go live like hippies off in the forest, and I had to try and steal like a power node from them. And the game basically gave me a choice of, I could help out the hippies and instead steal the power node from the main evil city, or I could try and just screw over these hippies because they probably smell bad and haven't showered in weeks. And I had this choice of, one of these groups is going to get freaking doomed, but I have to pick. It's up to me. That is so good. Or times like this. So I'm sorry I just keep telling stories, but that's what this game is. This game is just fundamentally great little anecdotes. Like here you have to go up to a space station and you're trying to talk this like black market dealer into giving you a key code that'll help you progress the main story. But once you get here, there are really these two very major choices in front of you. You can pay her 10,000 credits and get the item right up front, which would require grinding and killing a bunch of enemies and then selling all their loot, or additionally, she gives you the option to do this big side quest on a nearby planet where you're actually landing here and trying to check out the distress signal of a top secret lab where they're inventing the ultimate diet toothpaste. This will make your teeth whiter and your gut thinner. It's so funny and so insane that this is completely side content. Most players may never encounter this in their entire lives. But to me, this is why The Outer Worlds is a game that is so unique. It is a game that stands very much apart because I think that every person who plays this is not at all going to see the same content. At one point, just to see the actual limits of the game, I started trying to kill people, and I went into like parts of towns and would just try and clear things out, killing sometimes even leaders, super powerful people, and trying to take out all their like assassins to protect them just to see if I could steal the hyper advanced gear right at the beginning, and I could. This game gives you so many options and so many tools and just says, hello, this is now your galaxy. It's one of those things that the longer I played this game, the more it really kind of hit me that Fallout and games like this are probably dead, because the next generation is certainly here. Honestly, by the time we get in Outer Worlds 2, this is going to be a giant step in a totally new style of gaming that I am absolutely here for. This is open world. It has quest hubs and stuff, but additionally, it feels much more contained. It is a style of game that I don't think anybody else has managed to do, but soon we may see a lot more of this. The only real flaw I've had in The Outer Worlds is that there is some things where it definitely tries to corral you into certain points. Like areas will have sometimes some pretty egregious invisible walls, or some planets are much more empty than others. It certainly makes where the game is definitely trying to lock you on a certain path, and yes, there are other places you can go and other things you can do, but the main story has an objective, and it constantly wants to subtly steer you back to it. It's pretty obvious to me that this is a game that's going to be talked about for many years to come, simply because it is just so replayable, so customizable, and so dang fun. It is coming out in a couple months apparently on Nintendo Switch, and I know a lot of people already are saying, I kind of want to wait for that version. I'm just saying right up front, if you own an Xbox, this is on Games Pass, so you could actually play this for like $5. But even still, paying $60 for this thing on PlayStation 4 or PC is a steal of a deal. Or even if you wait for it to come to the Nintendo Switch, I really hope that everybody plays this game, because I am just so shocked that Obsidian managed to make a comeback. This is the true Fallout once again. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video and sort of how it was a little bit of a review, give this video a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. They're doing a little bit of construction on the road outside, and I tried to block off my window, but you may hear a little bit of it. I do deeply apologize. I'm trying to stop it, but I want to still make videos. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.